On August 15th, 2005, something appeared off the coast of Florida. Not a blip, not a flare. Something persistent. Lieutenant Commander Richard Morgan had spent 18 years watching naval sonar. He thought he'd seen it all. Chinese subs playing shadow games, rogue fishing trawlers in restricted zones, even a dead whale once. But this was different. 10 miles east of Key West, at the edge of a trench no one had ever mapped properly because no equipment ever worked near it, a signal appeared. Pulsing. Alive. It sat 900 feet below the surface. No movement. No propulsion signature. No comms. Just there. The blip was big. Too big for any known vessel. Bigger than a submarine. Bigger than a wreck. And the strangest part? Every sonar sweep returned perfect data. That never happened in that region. That trench was a graveyard for electronics. Until now. And in less than 72 hours, the United States Navy, a hand-picked scientific team, and one oceanographer whose father had vanished 30 years earlier, would uncover something buried beneath the waves. Something not made by human hands. Something that had been waiting. Richard Morgan leaned forward in his chair, eyes locked on the sonar screen as the green pulse blinked again. Same position, same return, same low hum beneath the surface noise that he couldn't explain. His coffee had gone cold. He didn't notice. "Fletcher," he called out, not taking his eyes off the monitor. "I've got something weird. Eastern Trench. It's not moving, but it's definitely there." Admiral Theodore Fletcher was already halfway through his first coffee and halfway through ignoring what he thought was another sonar ghost, until he saw Richard's face. He walked over. One look at the screen, and his expression shifted. "That's not drift," the Admiral muttered. "No, sir. Whatever it is, it's holding position. 903 feet deep. Surface. Current's 2.1 knots, yet this thing hasn't moved an inch in hours." "You ran diagnostics?" "Twice. Calibrated with backup. Signal's real." The Admiral set his mug down. "What about ID? Could be Chinese, Russians." Richard shook his head. "No acoustic signature, no prop, no drive, and, sir, it's giving off energy. Faint but steady. Low-frequency EM pulses. Not natural." That changed everything. Fletcher's voice dropped. "Shut this down. Now. Encrypt the logs. No one talks about this outside of command. You understand me?" "Aye, sir." 2 hours later, a silent command thread was routed through non-classified naval systems, avoiding digital footprints. Within 24 hours, a Black Ops recon vessel left a small harbor in South Carolina under storm cover, running cold. No flag, no beacon. Its mission, investigate and contain. On board that ship, Commander Abigail Winters reviewed the dossier with a grim focus. She wasn't Navy. Not anymore. Her service file was locked behind more clearance walls than most Special Forces missions. But when the government needed someone who could operate under pressure, underwater, and in the grey areas between science and command, they called her. She was quiet, sharp, and not easily shaken. As the ship rolled gently toward Key West's trench line, she stood alone on the deck, looking out into the blackness of the Atlantic. Her eyes narrowed, not from the wind, but from instinct. Something was wrong. Not in the usual way. She could feel it. At 0700 hours the next morning, the team deployed. It wasn't a large operation, only 5 people. But every one of them had been chosen for specific reasons. Sonar expertise, electromagnetic field specialization, deep-sea drone control, structural engineering, and Abigail herself, oversight, decision-making, and emergency fallback if things went sideways. The ocean was unnaturally calm. The text said the surface read glass flat, an anomaly in itself for that region in late August. It was hurricane season. The air should have been unstable. Wind should have been chopping the waves, but it wasn't. "Feels like the sea's holding its breath," one of the younger crew whispered. Lieutenant Marcus Sanderville, the sonar analyst, looked uneasy as he rechecked his gear. "Sir, ma'am, this trench usually scrambles everything. But today? Everything working?" Abigail asked. "Too well," he muttered. "Comms are clean. Scans are sharp. Our instruments are running at full capacity. That's not supposed to happen down here." "Explain." "This region's notorious for EM interference. That's why there's no reliable data on the trench. It's like a black zone for electronics. But now it's like something stabilizing it." Abigail leaned over his shoulder. Her voice dropped to a near whisper. "Or inviting us." They deployed the prototype drone, a deep-sea model not yet on public record, capable of 1,500-foot dives, armed with high-frequency sonar, LED floodlights, and a return-to-surface emergency beacon. As it slipped beneath the waves, a small screen on board flickered to life. At 200 feet, the ocean was still lightless, silent. At 500, a faint hum began on the audio feed. At 800, the humming intensified. Marcus looked nervous. Then, 900. The LED lights kicked in, slicing through total blackness, and what they saw didn't make sense. The object came into view like a mountain hidden in ink. Triangular. Massive. Its surface covered in marine growth, yes, but underneath, metal. Not corroded, not rusted. Shining. Abigail leaned in. "Pause it," she said. Marcus froze the feed. The camera had caught the edge of a geometric surface, grooves and indents following no naval design she'd ever seen. Abigail stood up, walked to the deck window. The sea was calm. "Deceptive." She tapped her radio. "Log this exact moment. Mark the footage. Encrypt it." She hesitated. "Call Washington." Marcus blinked. "That serious?" "We're not looking at a shipwreck," she said, voice steady. "We're looking at something that's not from here." The signal hit Washington by noon. Not officially. Not through any known pipeline. It came in the form of a black briefcase slid across a Pentagon desk. Inside, encrypted footage, pressure readings, sonar grids, and 14 seconds of video that made a 4-star general stop mid-sentence. That same evening, the president was briefed behind closed doors. No press, no advisors outside the inner ring. Within hours, the operation was greenlit under the code name Project Deep Blue. Publicly, the Navy would announce a deep-sea resource mapping mission. Privately, something else was underway. A containment perimeter was established around the site. Satellites retasked. All drone footage from the region was quietly scrubbed from civilian oceanographic servers. Naval ships repositioned under the guise of joint force training drills. And one by one, they brought in the best minds they could find. Dr. William Harrison was 65 years old and still could outdive most of his students. He'd written 2 textbooks on deep-sea archaeology, held degrees from MIT and Cambridge, and consulted on everything from Cold War sub-recoveries to Roman wrecks off the coast of Tunisia. But nothing looked like the thing in the footage. He leaned forward in the mobile lab's monitor room, one hand rubbing his chin, the other gripping a stylus like a weapon. "This surface isn't just hydrodynamic," he muttered. "It's engineered to move through a fluid medium, but not just water." The other scientists exchanged glances. "Then what?" one asked. William didn't answer. He was already scanning another image. Abigail Winters walked into the room, expression unreadable. Behind her followed 2 more additions to the team. One was Dr. Sofia Rodriguez, astrobiology lead at NASA, and one of the few people on Earth who had ever written a published theory on extraterrestrial hydromorphology. The other was Rear Admiral James Cooper, tasked with full command oversight. He wasn't here for show. Had years in naval intelligence. Fought piracy off the Somali coast, commanded Black Ops during Cold War endgames, and survived 4 closed-door hearings with classified oversight. The man had steel in his bones and zero tolerance for speculation. He opened the briefing with a single sentence. No one talks, not to press, not to family, not even pillow talk. If it leaks, it dies. Understood? A room full of PhDs nodded in silence. Over the next 3 days, they mapped everything. High-resolution sonar revealed the structure was nearly 350 feet across, triangular in shape and hollow in sections, not fully solid, not fully dead. And then, the patterns emerged. Along its hull were small, perfectly circular openings, each 15 inches in diameter. Some were clustered, others arranged in rows. None were random. Access points, Sophia suggested. Sensor arrays, Harrison countered. Weapon ports, Admiral Cooper muttered. William rolled his eyes. Not everything new is hostile, Admiral. And not everything ancient is safe, Doctor. But the scientists weren't the only ones watching. There was something else. Dolphins, pods of them. Dozens. Then hundreds. Not drifting, not feeding, patrolling. Dr. Layla Jackson, marine mammal specialist, reviewed live feeds with disbelief. They're forming patterns, rings, holding perimeters. Could be coincidence, someone offered. No, Layla whispered. They're emitting ultrasonic sequences in timed bursts. She leaned closer to her. Spectrograph. It's not just sound, it's structured. You think the dolphins are communicating? She didn't answer right away. I think... She paused, choosing her words carefully. I think they're protecting it. In Seattle, 2,600 miles away, Michael Cooper stood in front of a whiteboard covered in ocean current simulations. He was mid-lecture when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He ignored it. Then a second buzz. Check your email. They found something. Atlantic Trench. Your name's on the list. Michael froze. He knew the coordinates before he even opened the file. 2 years ago, his father, Captain Thomas Cooper, had vanished in that very region while commanding a research vessel called the Horizon. The official report blamed a storm. No wreckage, no debris, no closure. Just silence. Michael had been 5 years old. Now, at 35, he taught oceanic magnetism at the University of Washington, wrote papers, gave lectures, tried to move on. But the trench, that trench, had never let go. The email said nothing more than this. Classified clearance granted. Report to coordinates within 24 hours. Speak to no one. Michael cancelled his classes and packed light. He boarded a military transport plane alone with a knot in his stomach that hadn't been there in decades. He didn't know what they'd found. But something inside him whispered, "You already know." The transport plane touched down just after midnight. No lights. No welcome. Michael stepped onto the tarmac of an airstrip so remote it didn't appear on commercial satellite maps. A black SUV rolled to a stop beside him before the wheels had even cooled. No names exchanged. Just a nod. He was driven in silence. Coastal highway, then inland, then back toward the sea, until the road simply ended. Before him, past rows of camouflaged fencing and motionless guards, stood Platform Echo, a floating command base built over Ernite above something no one had the words to define. The air reeked of salt, oil, and tension. Inside the command tent, Admiral James Cooper stood over a table of charts and thermal imaging data. He looked up as Michael entered. "You're Thomas Cooper's boy." "Michael," he said. "Dr. Michael Cooper." "Still a Cooper," the Admiral muttered, gesturing him inside. Screens lined the walls, showing sonar feeds, drone telemetry, dolphin movement charts. But one image repeated more than the others. The triangle. Michael couldn't take his eyes off it. "That's real," he whispered. "As real as it gets," Admiral Cooper said. "You're here because your father's expedition matches every anomaly we're seeing now. The same frequency distortions, the same trench." Michael stepped closer to the monitor. His throat tightened. "This is the same region." "We pulled the logs," the Admiral confirmed. "The horizon disappeared 30 years ago within 10 nautical miles of where this thing is now. That's not a coincidence." Michael's voice dropped. "You think it's connected. We think it's the reason your father never came back." The next morning, Michael was brought up to speed. Drone telemetry, magnetic pulse patterns. The anomaly's strange timed emissions. Every 108 minutes, the triangle released a low-frequency burst, disrupting electronics for exactly 3 seconds before stabilizing. Michael reviewed the readings with a sinking feeling. "This isn't random," he told Sofia Rodriguez during one of their sessions. "It's rhythmic, coordinated." Sofia leaned in. "Like a heartbeat? Like a gate? A timed window?" He pulled up the waveform data. Every 108 minutes, the magnetic field weakens just enough for partial scan penetration. Just enough to see inside. Sofia's eyebrows rose. "Then we have an opportunity." Michael nodded. "But we're going to need better gear. Something that can withstand the full pulse and get within 10 feet of that surface." "Meaning a man, Z sub?" "Yes." When Michael proposed a direct dive, the reaction was immediate. Admiral Cooper shut it down. "Absolutely not. We're not risking lives based on a theory." "With respect, sir," Michael argued, "remote drones have reached their limit. If we want answers, we go down." "You think your father disappeared for fun, son?" Michael's jaw tightened. "I think he found something he couldn't escape." Silence fell across the room. It was Dr. William Harrison who finally broke it. "Maybe it's time we find out what." Later that night, Michael stood on the edge of Platform Echo, looking out at the ocean where the trench lay like a wound beneath the waves. Sofia joined him, holding 2 mugs of instant coffee. "You really think he's down there?" she asked. "I don't know what I think," Michael admitted. "But for 30 years all I had were questions. If I don't go now, I'll regret it the rest of my life." Sofia nodded, then hesitated. "There's something I haven't told the others yet." Michael turned. "What?" She lowered her voice. "That alloy on the triangle. I ran it through every material database we have. There's no match." He blinked. "None?" "The closest hit was a theoretical composite designed by NASA. Something they hoped could survive relativistic travel." Michael's heart skipped. "You're saying?" "I'm saying this thing was built for deep space movement. It didn't sink here, Michael. It came here. On purpose." Meanwhile, across the platform, Layla Jackson was staring at the dolphin pods again. The mammals were back, tighter formations this time. Circling, not random. They swam patterns, paused, then repeated. Not migration, not feeding, not play. "Guys," she called into the main tent. "I think they're talking to us." On the main speaker, a chorus of dolphin clicks and ultrasonic whistles echoed, except this time there was rhythm. Patterned pulses, measurable, timed, echoed across groups. William stepped in and froze. "They're mapping something," he said. Sofia joined moments later, eyes wide. "That's a sequence," she said, pointing to the spectrogram. "That's math." Layla turned. "They're trying to tell us something." William exhaled. "Or lead us somewhere." By sunrise, the plan was set. A specially reinforced submersible named Venture would descend. 3 seats, reinforced hull. New shielding tuned to the triangle's pulse signature. Pilot, Lieutenant Olivia Blackwood. Scientific lead, Michael Cooper. Archaeological advisor, William Harrison. It wasn't a rescue mission. It was a reckoning. And for Michael, it wasn't just about alien tech or buried truth. It was about his father, what happened to him, and whether something beneath that trench had been watching them all along. The sun rose behind steel-grey clouds as the Venture was lowered into the Atlantic. Michael stood on the platform in a sleek dive suit, his helmet tucked under one arm, watching the submersible rock gently on its cradle. It looked small compared to the magnitude of what they were descending into. Admiral Cooper approached, jaw tight. "You sure about this?" Michael glanced at the crane cables, then at the ocean, dark and mirror-smooth. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." "You find what we're looking for down there," the Admiral said. "You don't play hero. You get back up." Michael nodded. But they both knew this wasn't just a science mission. It was personal. It had been for 30 years. Inside the Venture, Olivia Blackwood was already running checks. Ex-Navy, calm under pressure, and one of the few pilots trusted to navigate uncharted deep-sea trenches. She didn't speak much. She didn't have to. Her hands moved across the control panel with surgical rhythm. William Harrison, squee, Zed into the rear observational seat, grunted as he adjusted his harness. "Well," he said, strapping in, "I've been inside Mayan ruins, Roman catacombs, and once a flooded Soviet bunker. But this is new." Michael smiled faintly as he clicked his restraints into place. "Ready?" Olivia didn't answer. She just lowered the visor on her HUD and tapped the release. The Venture slipped beneath the surface, 100 feet. The world outside turned blue, 400 feet. The sunlight vanished completely. Olivia's voice crackled in their earpieces. "Passing 600 feet, all systems green." Michael's hand hovered over the magnetometer console. Magnetic field increasing gradually, within predicted parameters. William leaned toward the porthole, eyes scanning the blackness beyond the external floodlights. "It's like descending into thought," he murmured. "Quiet, cold, full of secrets." Olivia kept descending, 100 feet. "Approaching active zone," Michael announced. "Pulse window in 90 seconds. Then they saw it. A soft luminescence, like mist in the water. "Do you see that?" William asked. Bioluminescence? Michael wondered. Except it wasn't scattered. It flowed. A blue glow, not from marine life, but the water itself. It shimmered in tendrils around the sub. "Sonar's warping," Olivia warned. "Echoes are distorted, like something's bending them around us." Michael looked at the pulse monitor. Pulse window opening in 20 seconds. Suddenly the feed buzzed. Interference. The voice from topside cracked through static. "Venture, this is Echo Base. Reading unusual activity. Proceed with caution. Over." Then silence. "We've lost them," Olivia muttered. "Going to backup comms." "Wait. Look." Michael pointed out the viewport. Dolphins. At least a dozen. Moving with impossible precision. Tight formation. No hesitation. They encircled the Venture, then shifted into alignment, swimming ahead, then circling back. "They're not random," William whispered. "They're leading us," Michael said. "They want us to follow." The dolphins began to guide them, nudging gently when Olivia veered off course. "They're communicating with us," William said, awed. "Not just instinct. This is intentional." One of them swam directly up to the viewport, a large male, old scars across its flank, dorsal fin notched in two. It stared in at them, right at Michael, and then it moved its head, a slow, deliberate gesture. Forward. "They're granting us access," Michael whispered. "It's not just a ship. It's a threshold." The venture continued to descend. At 900 feet, the shape emerged from the black. Not all at once. First, a shimmer, then angles, then the triangle. It wasn't metal, not exactly. Parts of it gleamed. Others were grown over with marine life, vines of coral and soft barnacle tissue woven along seams. But now, closer, Michael saw something else. The patterns. The marine growth wasn't random. It followed the seams of the craft, like it had been allowed, even cultivated, to disguise what lay beneath. "Those grooves," William said breathlessly. "That's celestial geometry. It's mapping constellations." Then, a pulse. A low thrum vibrated through the submersible. Lights on the triangle's hull flickered. Circular openings along the surface began to glow, soft amber rings illuminating in sequence. "It's responding," Michael said, watching the pulses cascade across the ship. "It knows we're here." Suddenly, movement. From one of the triangle's larger openings, a smaller triangular vessel emerged. 30 feet across, same metallic sheen, same humming tone. It moved like no submarine Michael had ever seen, like a thought made physical. It stopped directly in front of them. No weapons, no threat, just waiting. "They sent a scout," William breathed. The dolphins moved to the sides, forming a wide perimeter. Michael watched his console. "It's emitting pulses, structured electromagna, tick fields." Olivia stared forward. "It's scanning us." Then, the dolphins began to respond. Clicks, whistles, harmonics. "They're translating," William realized. "They're acting as intermediaries between us and it." For a full minute, no one spoke. Just pulses, patterns. Then the scout ship extended something from its hull. A docking mechanism. Olivia's eyes narrowed. "It wants us to connect." "That's insane," she muttered. "We don't know what's inside. We don't know if we can even survive it." Michael leaned forward, staring at the node. "My father came here, 30 years ago. I'm going," he said. The docking mechanism clicked into place with a soft thud that echoed through the venture's hull like a heartbeat. Atmosphere readings stabilized. "Breathable," Olivia muttered, staring at her console. "Oxygen-rich, slightly elevated levels but within safe range. Pressure equalized." Michael and William stared at the sealed passage now extending from the alien scout craft. "Someone made this for us," William said softly. "Or for someone like us," Michael replied. He reached for his lightweight diving suit and zipped it up in silence. "I'm going," he said. "Not without me," William snapped, strapping into his own suit. "If this is the last thing I ever see, I'll be damned if it's through a monitor." Olivia stared at them both. 15 minutes. You don't check in, I'm pulling you out. Docking clamp or not." Michael nodded. Then the two men entered the passage. The tunnel was eerily smooth, metallic but warm to the touch. Soft lights pulsed along the floor, amber and blue, alternating in rhythm like a guided path. At the end, they reached a sealed door. Alien symbols glowed across the surface, shifting gently as if reading them. William reached out, fingers trembling. "This one," he said. "Looks like an opening command." He pressed it with a hiss and a soft click. The door unsealed. Inside was a single chamber. Walls curved organically, light radiating from beneath the surfaces. Strange glyphs danced across what appeared to be transparent metal, showing layered schematics of Earth, its oceans, and stars. In the center, a control pedestal, clearly designed for a creature not quite human. Longer limbs, wider span. Michael moved slowly, breath shallow. Everything felt wrong, and yet familiar. Then the floor beneath them vibrated, and the craft moved. "We're being pulled," William said, glancing at a side display. Outside the transparent wall, they could see the larger triangle ship, the mother vessel, waiting in silence. The scout slipped effortlessly through one of its glowing openings. They were inside. The docking completed with no sound. Another door opened, and beyond it, space. Massive. An atrium the size of a stadium, lit in that same ghostly blue, where walls shimmered between solid and translucent. Structures hovered mid-air, pathways coiled and shifted as if waiting for travelers. Michael stepped forward like a man in a dream, then stopped cold. A wall panel glowed to life. On it, Earth. Then the Atlantic. Then the horizon, his father's ship. A sequence of images flickered. The horizon approaching the triangle 30 years ago. Power systems failing, crew scrambling. Then darkness. But not all was lost. A final frame. One life form detected. A human figure, drifting in the deep, pulled into the triangle by unseen forces. "No," Michael whispered. They turned a corner and entered a side chamber. Inside was a glass capsule surrounded by humming lights, a preservation pod. And inside it, his face older, beard slightly grown, body intact and unmoving, was Captain Thomas Cooper. Michael dropped to his knees. "Dad," he breathed. William knelt beside him, reading alien symbols on a side panel. "He's alive," he whispered. "Red. Suspended. Vital signs steady. They've kept him in stasis this entire time." Michael pressed his hand to the glass. "Why?" Another panel glowed. A projection played above the capsule, holograms of the horizon's last moments. It had approached the triangle during a pulse spike. Their systems collapsed. The triangle had reacted to save what it could. Only Thomas survived. "They didn't abduct him," William said. "They rescued him. And didn't know how to communicate." Another display activated. It showed dolphins interacting with the triangle across generations. Ancient ones, modern ones, their communication growing more complex with each generation. "They've been guiding them," William whispered, "evolving them as a bridge species." Then the final display appeared. Earth. Humans. Dolphins. Valians. The name translated on screen. The alien species. And then, together, working side by side. Michael looked back at his father. The pod's lights shifted from blue to green. "He's waking up," William whispered. Michael's breath caught. For 30 years he had imagined this. The empty chair at graduations, the voicemail that never came, the photo of his father in his wallet, worn to near transparency. And now, his father's eyes fluttered open. He blinked at the chamber lights, squinting through the glass, then focused on the face outside. A long pause, and then a smile. "Mikey?" Michael's knees buckled. "I found you," he choked. "Dad, I found you." 3 hours had passed. On the surface, Admiral Cooper paced the deck of Platform Echo, jaw clenched, eyes on his watch. The sub's last full transmission had come 30 minutes ago, static since. "No contact, no visuals, no data. I'm preparing extraction," he said, stepping toward the operations tent. Sophia Rodriguez stood beside Dr. Layla Jackson near the dolphin spectrographs. "They're not distressed," Layla said, scanning the water. "If something had gone wrong, they'd be scattering." Sophia crossed her arms, gaze locked on the sonar feed. "Or they're still protecting something."
The comms officer suddenly shouted from inside the tent. "Surface activity! South quadrant! Something's rising! And it's not the Venture!" Everyone on deck scrambled toward the edge as a low hum began to ripple across the ocean. It started subtle, blue light beneath the surface, glowing brighter and wider.
Then, without sound, without turbulence, the triangular scout craft broke the waterline, its hull gleaming wet in the overcast daylight. It hovered, just above the waves. Then, with impossible precision, it lowered onto the helicopter pad of Platform Echo, perfectly centered, water trailing off like mist. Every soldier raised a weapon. Admiral Cooper's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Stand down. No one fires unless I give the command." The scout craft made no move. No weapons, no lights, just a soft, rhythmic pulse that seemed to come from inside the metal. A seam appeared along the top, smooth, seamless. It widened, and from within, 3 figures stepped out. Michael Cooper emerged first, helmet off, soaked but smiling. Behind him was William Harrison, his expression unreadable, eyes distant like a man who had touched the edge of something holy. And then, Captain Thomas Cooper stepped into daylight for the first time in 30 years. Still in uniform, still bearing the insignia of the horizon. Gasps rippled through the platform. Soldiers who had never flinched at gunfire froze. Sophia stepped forward, breath caught in her throat. "My God," she whispered. "He's alive." Thomas squinted at the sun, raised a hand slowly and smiled. "Permission to come aboard, Admiral?" Admiral Cooper took 2 steps forward, his mouth dry. "Welcome back, Captain." Michael turned to the ship. "There's one more." And then, the 4th figure stepped out. It wasn't human, not remotely. 7 feet tall, skin a smooth shimmer of aquatic silver, limbs Joe's. Inted differently, elongated, and fingers, 6 of them, ending in delicate ridges that moved independently like sea anemone. The Valian emissary moved like water, graceful, balanced. The soldiers raised rifles again. "Hold!" Admiral Cooper barked. "I said stand down!" The alien raised one hand, a slow, deliberate gesture, 6 fingers splayed. Then it spoke, but not with sound. Every person on that platform heard the words directly in their mind. "We have waited long enough. You are ready now." Silence. Not even the ocean moved. And then came the dolphins, dozens of them, breaching the waves in a perfect ring around Platform Echo, spinning, clicking, whistling. Their voices rose in complex patterns, singing. And beneath them, the water shimmered again. One by one, triangular ships began to rise. First 1, then 3, then dozens, appearing across the horizon like leviathans waking from ancient slumber. Each ship pulsed with that same glowing rhythm, amber and blue, calling, breathing. The sky was no longer empty. The world was no longer alone. Thomas placed a hand on Michael's shoulder. "They've watched us for millennia," he said. "Guarded us, protected us, waiting for the moment we were ready." "Ready for what?" the Admiral asked. "To join something greater." The Valian emissary turned its gaze toward the human crowd. Another pulse echoed from its mind. "We watched you build fire. We watched you bury your dead. We watched you stand, fall, and rise again. And now, we welcome you." And for the first time, the sea wasn't silent. It sang. On every coast, from the Horn of Africa to the cliffs of Ireland, sonar buoys lit up with identical pulses. In Washington, NORAD, Moscow and Beijing, military analysts stared at impossible radar returns. On YouTube, a civilian fisherman's blurry footage of a rising triangle was already going viral under the title, "Alien Ship." And in a quiet room in New York, the president was handed a secure tablet. Message incoming from Platform Echo. Subject, first contact. That night, as the Valiant craft remained motionless above the waves, and a human captain long thought dead stood beneath the stars once more, the world changed. Not through fire, not through conquest, but through a handshake the size of an ocean. And humanity's adolescence, full of war, wonder, and fear, was finally ending. The first official interspecies summit was scheduled within a week. Location, United Nations Headquarters, New York. Security, global. Secrecy, impossible. Because by then everyone knew, not just through press conferences or government leaks, but from the sea itself. Across every coastline, Valiant scout ships had surfaced, never aggressive, never armed. They simply appeared. Silent triangles hovering above harbors, drifting alongside fishing boats, waiting. The world didn't panic. Not exactly. They paused. They watched. And then they listened. Inside the UN chamber, Michael Cooper sat beside his father. Thomas wore a tailored suit that couldn't hide the 30-year-old uniform patch stitched discreetly inside the jacket. His posture was upright, voice clear. Not a ghost, not a relic, but a man reborn. And beside them, the Valiant emissary waited, expression unreadable, shimmering with colors only half visible to human eyes. Leaders from 160 nations leaned in as Thomas stood. They never invaded, he said. They never conquered. He turned toward the Valiant figure. They waited. They learned our languages, our species, our chaos. He paused. And they preserved what we could not. Layla Jackson presented the dolphin data, showing how generations had been evolving in parallel with alien guidance. Sophia Rodriguez explained Valiant materials, some capable of withstanding relativistic speeds, others self-healing in salt water. William Harrison displayed artifacts collected from the Triangle's inner vault, nameplates from long-lost vessels, instruments from missing planes, even a sealed capsule containing a photo from the Titanic, preserved perfectly in vacuum. Every disappearance, William said softly, was not an accident. It was preservation. Rescue. Curated history. He closed his notebook. They were archivists in a drowning world. Then Michael stepped forward. His voice was steady, controlled, but his hands trembled slightly as he tapped the console and activated the hologram. It showed Earth, then the Atlantic, then every ocean lit up with triangular vessels, like stars rising from below. This was never about one ship, he said, or one anomaly. This was preparation. And then, with one final command, he showed the last file the Valiants had shared. The galaxy, sprawling, spiraled. And from beyond one edge, darkness, something approaching. A hush fell across the UN chamber. The image rotated, zoomed, stabilized. An energy signature so vast, even simplified projections couldn't scale it to human comprehension. The Valiant emissary finally spoke, not aloud, but into every delegate's mind, just as it had on the platform. They are not like us, not preservers, not learners. They consume, reformat, rewrite. Planets are clay to them. Life is noise to be muted. Michael translated for those who couldn't process it clearly. They call them the Virek, and they've destroyed entire sectors. Their philosophy is domination through erasure. A delegate from Japan stood. And they're heading here? Thomas Cooper nodded. Within the next century, maybe less. A murmur rippled across the chamber. So why warn us? A German representative asked. Why not fight them yourselves? Michael looked at his father, and Thomas replied, Because the Valiants don't want subjects. They want allies. That night, as governments debated treaties, The world began to shift. Scientists from Ghana and Norway worked side by side in underwater labs. Dolphin vocalizations were reclassified as proto-linguistic code. Naval bases were repurposed into translation centers. Children in coastal towns wrote stories about guardian ships in the sea. The fear never vanished. But something stronger began to take root. Hope. On Platform Echo, now converted into a research hub, Michael stood beside the edge of the deck, watching the stars. His father joined him, 2 mugs in hand. "You always looked up," Thomas said, handing him one. Michael smiled. "And you always looked down." They both chuckled. "I still don't understand why they kept you," Michael admitted. "You, of all people." Thomas took a long breath. "I think I was the first they saw who didn't try to fight, who didn't panic. I was calm, dying, but calm." He glanced at his son. They saw that we could listen. As they stared at the waves below, the water shimmered faintly. A massive Valian bioconstruct moved just beneath the surface, serpentine, whale-sized, pulsing with soft light. One of Earth's new guardians, or maybe one of its oldest. William Harrison walked past them, arms full of data slates and notes. "Gentlemen," he said, tipping an imaginary hat, "if you'll excuse me, I have a book to rewrite." Michael stared at the horizon. For the first time in his life, he wasn't chasing a ghost. He wasn't trying to explain the unexplainable. He was part of it. His voice drifted over the sea. "They could have ruled us. They could have erased us. But instead, they waited until we were ready." In the oceans, dolphins leapt in coordinated arcs, singing their ancient songs. And in every corner of the planet, humans looked to the sea not with fear, but with wonder. Because now they knew they were never alone, and they never would be again. Cinematic CTA moment. If this story stirred something in you, if you believe humanity's greatest journey may lie beneath the waves, not just among the stars, subscribe to HGT Stories for more true-feeling sci-fi, where hope, mystery and meaning collide.